everybody, and welcome to B12. Now, we actually had to take a moment and try to figure it out, but we're like, we hit 12 or 13, so we're not quite teenagers.
Not quite yet. We're still tweens.
So make sure to check out our TikTok where we.
That was brilliant. You did a great job.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But see, the thing, like, all of your pictures, like, totally could have been the cute little girl that got kidnapped. I was like, seriously, every picture I was like, I could see that being like JonBenet Ramsey's picture. And then mine are like, that girl needs to be kidnapped. You know? No! I'm like pretending to fall, sticking my head in an alligator.
I liked all of yours.
Mine are like very Jenny.
They are.
Those are Jenny poses.
They are.
So, and I look through pictures of my dad. My dad is always making a goofy face, like every picture. And I'm like, I've totally inherited that because I don't think I ever make a straight face unless except my little Holy Cross uniform.
Yes,
that one was.
That's how I learned those poses.
Yes.
Just actually look good.
Yep. I was like, here's the model and here's the girl with sticking her head in the alligator.
No.
It was either that one or the one where I pretend to get hit by the train. That one was fun too.
That one was good.
Yeah, that was so it was a hard call and I've never, as you can tell, I've never quite figured out how to do my hair. You know, I can't girl, and so it's like I had short.
You have very short curly hair.
I do have very short curly hair. It's definitely, and it's bipolar curly hair. It's very like.
Yeah, all curly hair.
Yeah. Well, it's like one side decides to curl, the other one decides not to. And
yeah,
and then I look just even weirder than normal. So we're good. So we're not quite teens. So we'll have to do the full like, you know, teenage. No, we did quite a few of them.
We should have a birthday cake next time to celebrate our 13th. I mean, any excuse for cake.
Yeah, that works. So this is Crimes and Closings. I'm Jenny Olson-Payton.
I'm Dia Kappelman.
And we are going to talk about Dia's actually going to be doing this one today. And
yes,
I'm excited.
I don't know. It's not fun, but I've got a little twist.
Well, see, and I'm thinking, God forbid if we ever go missing or anything and people are looking at our back through our text messages, because it's like, dude, I've got the best murder for this next week.
I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I'm so excited. Yeah. Yes. It's a little messed up.
Okay, speaking of messed up, we need to like maybe throw in, we have a couple of, videos where we react. So I got a new, which I haven't gotten out yet, but there's a new one called The Vanishing or The Vanished on Netflix that I just saw this morning, and I think I'm gonna watch it tonight. Basically, a woman gets on a roller coaster, and when the roller coaster stops, she's gone, nobody can find her.
Is it solved?
I don't know.
Jenny?
Okay,
you watch it first, and then we'll do your reaction videos. Yeah, if it's not solved, don't watch it.
I know, but like, getting on there's only so many places you can go on a roller coaster. None of them
have a lot of options.
None of them are good. So I'm gonna be really interested. So like I said, tonight is one of those nights. Aaron's back to work today. Okay. So and Zach Bowles tonight. So I think I'm gonna go home and turn on that and see if it's unsolved, and I can do it for.
Okay, text me.
And see if it's worth doing a reaction video too.
Okay. It won't be as good as Abducted in Plain Sight.
Abducted in Plain Sight pretty much gets, so look for that coming soon. That's one of those that we got the footage and we're putting it together, and it's pretty.
Yes, we have fun.
There's only so many that we can do before we get boring. So all right. Twist.
Yes. Are you ready for this?
I am so ready for this.
Okay. And I have no poker face. I have zero poker face. I give everything away. So I hope that, I hope that I won't do that. I need some water.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So we're both but I have severe allergies. So.
And I have allergies.
Yeah. So somebody came into me and was like, are you crying? And I was like tears running down my face. I'm like, no, I just have really bad allergies.
It's fine. Everything is fine.
It's fine, I swear.
All right. Are you ready to learn about Edmund Kemper?
Ed Kemper.
Yes,
I'm very excited to learn about Ed Kemper.
He is well known in the. He is a well-known serial killer.
Yes. Have you seen it? He's creepy. Well, yes. He looks like a jail warden.
He does. He's 6'9", which is what he's most notably known for. Is just his size.
Yeah.
But also because he has been very open about doing a lot of interviews.
Yes.
He's done very documentaries, interviews, everything that he possibly could, because he says that he wants to stop somebody else from doing what he did, and he would like to do that.
So hopefully maybe that's admirable, but
No,
it's kind of like,
no. Once you delve into his psychology, he's also comes across as he's been diagnosed as narcissistic.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So he's also talking about
and he has some
himself.
mommy issues too.
He does have some mommy issues and grandmommy issues, but and it's debated on how bad they really were, because right now he's the narrator.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he's not super reliable.
Yeah.
And he also, we'll get into this a little bit later, he was also in charge of handing out psyche evals to fellow inmates. So he started learning what should be said, what could be said, what they wanted to hear. So when you hear him talk, it's almost like you're listening to
psychiatrist.
What should I be saying to get the to get your sympathy?
Well, and that's the scariest type. I mean, a narcissist who knows what they're talking about. I mean, like, I would rather go against, I'm trying to think of I would rather go against Jeffrey Dahmer than Ed Kemper any day.
Yes, because he was, and we'll talk about how he's able to negotiate all of this. There's a lot to talk about. Okay. So I'm going to give you very a Cliff Notes version of his story. There's so much to it. So I'll try and go through it pretty quickly.
Sure.
All right. He was born in December 1948 in California.
Okay.
His parents divorced early, and he started showing extreme cruelty to animals and had issues with bedwetting. So if you know anything about the McDonald triad, he's so far 2 out of the 3. And then his mother, who, again, the mental stability and how she treated him is very debated, but overall not great.
Yeah.
Used to lock him in the basement at night because she was scared for their safety. So he either ran away or she shipped him off to his father's house, but that didn't work out because his stepmom just didn't feel comfortable with him being there. He gave off creepy vibes.
Why? He wasn't a small child. I mean, like that's.
By the time he was 15, I believe he was about 6'5".
Yeah. See, that's the.
Yes. So he already was physically large, but he also was mentally not quite right. He wasn't quite there. Again, we're back to he was not.
Really?
He actually got picked on quite a bit
Oh.
Because of his size. He was very passive. He was not one of these outgoing, charismatic sort of people that we know at this point.
Yeah.
But because of his mental state and his size, she didn't feel comfortable. Again, the cruelty to animals, I can't. There's several stories, and I'm not going to go into it.
Please
but it was bad.
That is my no-no zone.
Yes, yeah. So we're staying away from that. So his father shipped Kemper off to live with his grandparents, basically his father's parents.
Okay.
Kemper also stated that his grandmother was overbearing, domineering. Now, I'm not saying that all of this can't be true, but he points back to the grandmother and the mother being why he turned out the way he did. Well, a lot of people have overbearing parents and still manage not to murder anyone.
Hell, a lot of people are overbearing parents. Just ask my boys.
Well, maybe not to this extent, but
no.
So in 1963, at 15 years old, Kemper got into a fight with his grandmother.
Okay.
So next logical step, he shot and killed her.
Oh, we go from one extreme to the other.
Being passive to snapping.
Yep.
Yes. And that's what he said. He just literally just snapped.
Yeah.
He said that he had been planning it for a while. So he snapped and said, yes, I'm going to do this, but I'm not doing it yet. And then he decided on that day, today's the day.
Right.
He then waited for his grandfather to arrive home and then killed his grandfather in the driveway.
Oh my goodness.
Not knowing what to do next, he called his mom, and his mom said, call the police.
Yeah, good plan.
So he did, and he waited there for them. The police arrived, took him into custody, and then Kemper explained he just wanted to see what it was like to kill grandma. But he killed his grandfather to save him from seeing his murdered wife, and to see that scene.
Well, and probably to avoid getting in trouble too.
Yes. Yeah, he was very concerned about that. He was very paranoid.
Yeah.
And he said that he would have gone on a killing spree if they had been in a suburban area. This was a very rural area.
Yeah.
He was so paranoid about everybody looking at him, seeing him, that he would have gone on a killing spree expecting everybody to look at him wrong and know what he did.
Right.
So he was sentenced to the Atascadero State Hospital as a criminally insane juvenile, and he was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic.
Okay.
They eventually took this diagnosis away, and I think as we've come to know better mental health, I don't buy armchair detective. I don't think he was schizophrenic.
Yeah.
He did have other mental issues, but schizophrenic.
Well, narcissism can manifest itself in so many different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like narcissistic tendencies are.
Yes.
Are
very paranoid, and I forget what else they diagnosed him with, but he had something else there. So by the time he was 20, and this is when they found out that he had a very high IQ, 146.
Wow.
And he could carry himself so well and was so obliging to everyone that this is when they let him give the psychobals to other patients.
It's the tea guy all over again.
It is.
And so we're talking physically hand them or actually like
conducting them.
Okay. Who the hell?
I don't know. So he not only just learning what they wanted to hear, he was also talking to violent offenders.
Never seen a crime movie?
Well, it was in the 60s, so maybe they just weren't as aware yet. But he was also talking to violent offenders and learning what they did and didn't do.
Okay.
And if that interested him, and also how they should and shouldn't have done those crimes. And so he was taking notes. Again, he's very smart, very brilliant. And so he was conducting himself in a way that made him come across as being completely reformed.
Completely trustworthy.
Exactly. So by the time he was 21, which literally on his 21st birthday, so he was basically 20.
Okay, yeah.
In 1969, he was released because the psychiatrists were convinced he was fully rehabilitated and he was no longer a threat.
Yeah.
He then went to live with his mother and became a functioning member of society. So his juvenile records were expunged in late 1972. He was considered well-adjusted, and he'd even tried to become a police officer, but couldn't because he was too tall at 6'9".
Wow.
But he wanted to be in that world, so he still maintained friendly relationships with Santa Cruz police.
Okay.
And that's it for this episode. He went on to live a happy, normal life. We're done.
I can safely say you're on this podcast. You do not want to live a happy life.
No, that's where it should have been because he was rehabilitated.
And, in their defense, especially when, it's not like, and it's so hard to sit there and say levels of murder, but it's not like he truly went on a killing spree. There's situational situations.
Yes.
It's a situational thing that maybe
you could say he snapped and he was showing pity to his grandfather. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know, but in the span of 5 or 6 years, he had them convinced. And then 3 years later, he was doing so well in life that they expunged his record.
Wow.
So that was November 1972.
Okay.
So now let's back up about 6 months to May 1972.
Okay.
He picked up 2 female hitchhikers, 18-year-old Marianne Peace and Anita Mae Luchessa. And then what followed, if you know anything about his story, it was very brutal, very graphic, and I'm not going to go into details because we're not that kind of podcast.
Yeah.
And I feel like the names.
I like that. We're not that kind of podcast.
No, we're. I mean, if you're looking for shock and gore, it's not us.
It's not us. But no, it's not. I'm going to use that on more than one occasion.
It's not.
It's not that kind of podcast. How dare you?
And I feel like the names are more important to speak about than what
100%.
happened to them.
100%.
So he picks them up, and for the sake of our podcast, he murdered them and then defiled them in very gross ways.
Yeah.
And that's what happened 6 months before his record was expunged. And he didn't stop there. In September of 1972, 2 months before his record was expunged, he picked up 15-year-old hitchhiker Aiko Ku, managed to lock himself out of the car, managed to talk his way back into the car, even with the gun, even with him right there. And she ended up being brutally defiled, murdered, and defiled again.
Mm.
So police were starting to notice the trend of murdered hitchhikers. When again in October of 1972, another 24-year-old hitchhiker, Mary Guilfoyle, was murdered, but she had been stabbed, dissected, and discarded differently than the previous victims. So there was a change, but still some similarities.
Right. Not a great, time to hitchhike.
No. We're going back to her.
Okay.
So then in January of 1973, 2 months after being cleared, 18-year-old hitchhiker Cindy Shaw was again murdered and defiled in really gross ways. 1 month later, 23-year-old Rosalind Thorpe and 20-year-old Allison Liu took a ride from Kemper, and both were again murdered.
Were they together?
They were together.
Well, you have to think, I come from a family of very tall, large men. We're talking, my son is 6'3", he's much thinner now, but he was, a football player. He was heavier, muscular when he was in high school. And, my dad was 6'3". There's about 6'9".
6'9". And these women still got into the car with him, but he had said that he picked up over 150 hitchhikers before he started murdering, because keeping in mind, he was learning how to modify his behavior, because when he went into the mental facility, he was 15 years old and left as a 21-year-old. He had to learn how to act like an adult.
Yeah.
And so he honed this, picking up all these women.
Could you imagine looking at the news one day and be like, I remember when I took a ride to that Grateful Dead concert by that guy.
He would be hard to miss because he was 6'9". And in fact, the daughter of a movie star actually was picked up by him. And then when they were talking, he realized who she was and decided, nope, too high profile, I'm not going to do it.
Wow.
And
which is interesting. So maybe it's the paranoid narcissist, because you would think a narcissist would be like, dude, guess who I killed?
Exactly. It was the paranoia. And we'll see that again pop up later.
Okay.
But the police were even saying, don't hitchhike. But then it was a popular thing to do. Don't hitchhike and go together.
Yeah. Even that
didn't help. And make sure that they have a university sticker on the car. That would make them safer. Well, it just so happened his mom worked at the university, so he had a university sticker on the car. So everyone was doing everything. These women did what they should have done, and were still murdered.
Yeah, well, and nobody could, he couldn't leave anybody alive, because all they need to say was, he was 6'9".
Yes.
It's not like
and he learned that. He was more interested. He wasn't interested in murdering them, but he learned from the previous violent offenders that he had to. So then he started kind of coming to a head with everything, and didn't want it to continue on. He knew what he was really doing. Yes, he was smart, was trying to kill his mother.
Right.
So in April of 1973, he decided, well, let's cut the snake off at the head and we will just kill my mother.
Freud would have had a hell of a time with him.
Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. So he either came home, there's a couple conflicting stories. Either she came home or he came home. They went to sleep. He waited till she was asleep, then bludgeoned her while she slept.
Wow.
More horrific things happened, very vile. And then he went for a drink at a bar, which you would probably need after everything that he did.
Yeah.
He came back home, invited his friend's mom over, Sally Hallett, and then proceeded to strangle her.
Wow.
And do violent things. And the reason he murdered the friend was to buy him more time by creating a backstory that the two women had left on a trip together.
Mm-hmm.
He hid the bodies in a closet and under a bed, and then cleaned up any signs that something was wrong. But then he left police a note admitting that he did it.
Signed by him.
Yes. Yeah, and he was very clear about this had to be done. I did it in her sleep. I didn't want her to suffer. That was another thing he was very concerned about. He did not want his victims to suffer. He wanted them to die quickly, and they did. And then he wanted to do what he needed to do. So yes, but then he fled to Pueblo, Colorado, about a 24-hour trip that he did straight with guns and ammunition, expecting this big, massive manhunt.
Yeah.
But on the way to Colorado, he didn't hear any radio chatter about the murders, and he was very confused by this. So once he got there, he called police again to be like,
So it's like the paranoia and the narcissistic.
yes, they're battling.
Yeah, they're like havoc.
Yeah, because he was ready with guns and ammunition, but then he's like, wait, where'd you guys go? And the police were like, you did what? Why don't you just...
Who are you?
Yeah, just call back later. And literally told him, just call back later. They didn't go check it out. They didn't anything. But that's what he did. He waited several hours and called back later.
Oh my gosh.
This time talking to one of his police officer buddies and confessed to him. This police officer believed him. So then once he was taken into custody, he confessed to not only killing the mother and her friend, but also 6 of the 7 hitchhikers that I just told you about. Okay. And the entire time he was very matter of fact, very honest about what he did, explaining it was taking a toll on him. He was ready to just be done.
Think about all his cop friends that were like, it was like Anne, what is it, Anne Rule she worked with Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
And they were like, they were pretty close. And she's like, so somebody that's trained to find people end up getting fooled by people. It's just amazing. You have to be smart.
And he was very smart, and he learned very quickly because of his brilliance how to navigate that world.
Right.
But I'd be interested to know if there was any signs.
Yeah.
If people were afterwards like, okay, something went wrong.
He was just a real quiet neighbor.
Well, he and his mother fought so much that they were known to be very loud, very boisterous over there.
Wow.
Because of their fighting. So then in November 1973, 1 year after his record was expunged, he was found guilty of 8 counts of first-degree murder.
Whoops.
Yep. California's bad. He requested death by torture, but California had abolished the death penalty, so he received 7 years to life for each count.
Oh, I was going to say, excuse me. 7 years.
No, for each count. He is actually still alive. He's incarcerated in California and is next available for parole in 2024. But he has consistently waived or been denied parole for the past 13 times. So let's hope the chain doesn't break on that.
Yeah. So, well, and I guess it's good to know that he's trying to waive. I mean, like, some offenders would be like, man, dude, no, I'm not. I need to just stay right where I'm at.
Well, and that's what it seems like. He kind of flips back and forth of, I'm not ready to get out. Yeah. And then he will say, well, the people aren't ready for me to get out. And then he will try to get out.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of that constant battle in his head, I'm guessing.
Well, he his size is probably working for him in jail, in prison.
Yes.
But it also would work against him in public because, I mean, again, how many 6'9"?
Yeah.
He is very like when you said his name, I'm like, I immediately see the mugshot.
Yes.
And it's, yeah.
So that is the story of Ed Kemper. But now we have.
But there's more.
But we have his murder. What happened?
Yes.
So any guesses where that murder came from?
No.
Mary Guilfoyle, was murdered by serial killer Herbert Mullen, who was active at the same time and in the same area as Edmund Kemper.
Okay, that's just, that would be a really hard time to work. You'd be like, now is this Kemper's girl or is this
Mullen's? And when I say same time, and we'll kind of go over the time frame, it was literally same time.
Yeah. So it's like one seems more surgical. Mullen seems more surgical.
Yes.
As opposed
No, Kemper.
Surgical? Kemper was dissected. Was that what I?
Okay, that was Mullen. Mullen dissected, but we'll get into his.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot of catchphrases coming up. We are not that podcast.
There are a lot of things we are.
I am not that kind of girl.
But that is not one of them. And
I'm designing the shirt right now. Podcast.
I'll wear it. Let's do it. I'm down. And the funny thing is, so this is all going on in 72, 73 in Santa Cruz, California.
Yeah.
This is actually 2 years after John Linley Frazier murdered a family of 5 in Santa Cruz.
There's a lot that kind of happened in that California area.
Oh yeah, because you still have 3 years earlier in 69, you have the Tate LaBianca murders by the Manson family.
Yep.
And the Zodiac killer was on his spree in San Francisco. So within the span of 5 years, you have this massive serial killer, and Frazier and LaBianca, I mean, technically weren't serial killers, but just mass murderers. But yeah, it was rough.
Manson's a hard one to swallow. Yeah, that's one that we need an entire season to unpack.
Oh, I don't even want to. People talk about him. I've already talked about him enough.
Well, they actually there's ties in Kansas City.
Really?
Yeah, one of the Folgers, the Folgers heiress, I guess, was one of the ones that.
I do think I remember that.
She was at Sharon Tate's house. Yeah.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one.
Jeez. Okay. All right, so then back to Mullen. He was born in 1947. He's a year older than Kemper. And he had a very normal upbringing.
That's even scarier.
And was voted most likely to succeed. So at the same time, I would love to delve into the psychology of both of these, and I feel like it could almost be a whole season. So They are running parallels at the same time, but polar opposites, where Kemper had this very horrific childhood. Mullen had a very normal childhood. And so nature and nurture in these stories would be fascinating. But anyway, voted most likely to succeed in high school, but in his late teens.
Did he play football?
Ooh. I think maybe he did.
Head injury? I wonder if we have a head injury.
Might have been.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he started showing signs of schizophrenia.
Yeah. Well, I know that comes
teens.
later. Yeah.
Mhm.
Late teens.
And when his friend was killed in a car wreck after graduation, that's really seemed to be what started his downward spiral.
Yeah.
He started getting into Eastern philosophy, reincarnation, and that's when he started kind of this.
Yep.
And then this seems to become more of a nature thing.
Okay.
There's debate on nature and nurture for Kemper, but I believe with Mullen, it was more nature. Because in 1969, at the age of 22, he was admitted to his first mental hospital.
Okay.
And then proceeded to bounce around to another 4 after being discharged because he wasn't a threat to himself or to others.
Oh, Lord.
So then in 1972, he moved back in with his parents. And by this time, he was really not all there mentally, really having some issues hearing voices.
Yeah.
He was more of what schizophrenia looks like as opposed to what they diagnosed.
Well, then you have drug use, pretty extensive drug use in California at that time.
Yes, and he was very big on hallucinogens. He had started with pot, and then LSD and mushrooms came into play, and that did not help.
Right.
And his birthday was April 18th, which was the anniversary of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. And that became a huge part of his life and his psyche about what it meant that he needed to do, because he believed the Vietnam War had killed enough Americans to prevent another earthquake.
Gotcha.
But with it winding down, at least for us, in late 1972, he would have to start killing people again to prevent another earthquake.
So we're talking just very off thinking.
Yes. And he believed he was told all this by his dad through telepathy.
Gotcha.
And even this,
it's not funny, but I'm just picturing this kid watching TV staring at his dad. His dad's like, dude, I'm trying to drink my beer and enjoy life.
But yeah, what are you staring at me for? Meanwhile, he's thinking, I kill people.
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, the telepathy part aside, he's single-handedly going to pick up where an entire war has left off. Oh, a horrible war.
Yeah, not even a small war.
Yes, a very big one. And he's like, it's all up to me now. I got to take care of this.
Wow.
So in October of 1972, he bludgeoned 55-year-old Lawrence White after Mullen pretended to have car trouble and asked Lawrence White for help. Okay. So first one was bludgeoning. Then later in October is when he killed Mary, the hitchhiker, and then he did dissect her and leave her remains. So far now he's got 2 different.
So we're gonna have to step up our game if we're going to competing with the Vietnam War for body count.
Yeah. So then in November, he was questioning his father's orders. They just didn't seem right that he would have to kill these people. So he went to
the Thanksgiving table and he's like,
and his dad's like,
dude, stop sharing.
Actually, there are he was showing signs, funny you say that, of schizophrenia at Thanksgiving with his family, mimicking everything that his sister's either boyfriend or husband was saying, and was being very inappropriate in many different ways, and they thought something he was off. Yeah,
something's off.
Yeah, they thought he wasn't acting right, but mentally it was more symptoms.
Yeah.
So it's funny you say Thanksgiving because there were issues there.
Yeah.
So then when he was questioning what his father was telling him to do, he went to speak with a priest when the priest volunteered to be the next sacrifice. Mullen obliged.
Telepathically, of course.
Telepathically.
Okay.
Mullen obliged by beating and stabbing the priest to death. Then in January of 1973, he tried to drive to a friend's house, the friend that originally introduced him into marijuana, and he wanted to have a conversation with him about why would he do that. He knocked on the wrong door, and Kathy Francis answered and also offered to be the next sacrifice, along with her 2 children, David and Damon. And Mullen shot all 3. Then made it down to the correct house and proceeded to shoot his friend and his wife.
Yikes.
Next, in February of 1973, he was hiking and came across Robert Spector, who's 18, Brian Card was 19, David Oliver at 18, Mark Drivelbus at 15.
Wow.
4 of them, they were camping illegally. He confronted them. They stood their ground. So the next day, Mullen came back and shot all 4.
Wow.
And then the last one, Mullen was driving down the street and he saw 72-year-old Fred Perez working in his garden. So Mullen pulled a U-turn, parked across from Frank, set up his rifle on the hood of his car, and shot Frank once through the heart.
Good night.
Yes. Neighbors saw everything, reported the license plate. The police pulled Mullen over shortly afterwards, and he had his rifle and his pistol in the passenger seat, but he didn't try to resist arrest.
Oh, that's good.
He went very calmly, and they described him as docile. And he admitted to all of his kills, but police hadn't been able to link together that there's a serial killer because there seemed to be no link between the victims.
Yeah, we're talking anywhere from bludgeoning to
the weapons and the style kept changing as well. So there was 0 connection between all of them.
Wow.
And had no clue that there was even another serial killer loose while Kemper was on the loose.
Wow.
In 1973, late 1973, he was convicted of 10 murders and pled guilty to 1. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and has been denied parole 8 times.
Wow.
So then this is fascinating to me. They were sentenced at almost exactly the same time and in the same place. So they went to the same prison and shared adjoining cells at one point. And Kemper didn't like Mullen. And he will openly complain about Mullen. And I'm like, dude, what gives you the right to complain about anything? But the thought of somebody annoying Kemper really makes me happy. I hope he just, but he was severely annoyed by him. He thought Mullen was faking hearing God and believing in earthquakes. And he was just, quote,
I just picture that he'd just be like, dude, he's going off about the God thing again. I'm not telepathically telling you to do this. What the hell?
No, that's seriously how Kemper talks about Mullen is he called it BS. He was like having none of it. Meanwhile, Mullen is over there hearing voices, not excusing what Mullen did. But I feel like Mullen probably has some ground to stand on if the voices told me to do it.
Yeah.
And Kemper just quote, he's just a cold-blooded killer, killing everybody he saw for no good reason. What did you do? So Kimber-
personality.
Kimber even liked to bully and manipulate Mullen. And one example of this was Kimber's own words, quote, "Well, Mullen had a habit of singing and bothering people when somebody tried to watch TV. So I threw water on him to shut him up. Then when he was a good boy, I'd give him some peanuts. Herbie liked peanuts. That was effective because pretty soon he'd ask permission to sing. That's called behavior modification treatment." End quote.
It's a good thing they allowed him to do those,
Psychedelics, yes. So all of that is the story of two serial killers in Santa Cruz active at the same time.
two stories in one.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Did you like that? I was very proud of that little twist.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about it. Kimber, but not a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't think I could pick Mullen out of a crowd.
No.
I mean, maybe if he's staring at me awkwardly, thinking I'm telepathically talking to him.
He looks very similar to Manson.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kimber, like if you look at his mug shot, he looks like a big,
He's a big guy.
whatever
He's a big teddy
guy.
bear, actually.
Yeah. You look at Mullen's mug shot and you're like, oof.
So I kind of wonder how many people, because like especially with Ed Kemper's ability to, I guess, sweet talk.
Yes.
I wonder how many like marriage proposals he's had.
Oh,
I know.
I can't even imagine. And I'm sure he enjoys every single one of them.
Yeah.
But I would think a lot.
Yeah.
So that's the story. And I mean, diving into nature versus nurture on both of them, both very similar at the same time, but very.
Yeah. And very different mental health issues. I mean, like we're talking about the spectrum of, and schizophrenia is scary as hell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you think about some of the effects and then when you mix it with hallucinogens, I would not want to be a police officer in the 1970s in California.
No, they had a rough time. California was not a pretty place.
No, I would just be like I'm going to Kansas City, Missouri, where there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we had, that was later in the 80s. We had Burdella. We had Burdella and then we had Grissom.
Yeah.
Grissom's the one that I'm actually tempted to take that one on because a lot of people seem to forget Grissom. They always say Burdella. So Grissom was pretty much the height of when I started becoming, Grissom was probably the first case that got me involved in true crime.
Okay.
Because it was hitting about the same time. I was probably 8 or 9. And so I remember hearing it all over the radio stations. And it was like, I mean, there's actually people out there that murder other people. And I mean, so it was one of those, for a while there, my parents were concerned that I needed help.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. Well,
I would be concerned too.
Well, did I ever tell you about the ocular migraines? I probably told you. So I had the ocular migraines on top of everything else in which I saw things. And being a highly creative child that loved true crime and murder and mystery. Yeah.
Some of your hallucinations?
Yeah, some of my hallucinations were, and like I said, thank God for my allergist because, my mom was like, dude, she's seeing bodies from trees. And the allergist is like, wait a second, she's having ocular migraines and they put everything together. So thank God for that. But
yes.
Yeah.
You would have been a witch 300 years ago.
I would have been burned at the stake long ago. So that's
awesome. We can laugh about that casually now.
We are that kind of podcast.
We are. Yeah, that is us.
You remember that time we were almost hospitalized for hallucinations? That's us.
All right.
Yeah, that's cool. So what are we seeing in the market right now? I mean, I feel like everybody's taking this big breath.
Yes.
And we're in that period where everybody's like holding it because I feel like, especially with short sales and foreclosures, I mean, I can see the tidal wave coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not here yet.
I agree.
Yeah. So what are you seeing with like buyers and sellers offers?
I'm seeing a lot more. I'm seeing inspections start to come back.
Yeah. Thank God.
Slowly, but they are coming back.
Yeah.
That's nice to see. I haven't seen an appraisal waiver for a while now.
Good.
So that seems to be also calming down in its present condition, that's the funny thing. We talked about this a couple months ago. Those are starting to become.
Isn't that nice to say? We had our podcast a couple months ago. Can you imagine when we hit our 100th episode, we're going to be like, way back in the day. When we used to, before we had somebody handling all our social media and video editing. if you know of anyone that wants to work for free.
I think you're doing a great job. That's not bad.
You're doing a great job hosting. The video editing is a little rough.
I think it's a little rough. Everything we do is rough. That's also our podcast.
We are that podcast.
We are rough. We need snacks. Because what you can't see right now, we started off very professional.
We did. We were talking about
with
this.
our water.
Mhm.
And now what you can't see is it's just
There's
snacks.
some cheese wrappers
everywhere.
some snacks. Yeah, it's an open mail. It's our
We're
professionalism.
letting it go. The honeymoon period's over.
We're letting our freak flag fly.
As it should.
Yes.
Okay for us.
So yeah, well, and one of the things back to real estate, one of the things I'm seeing is this huge increase in BPOs or agent requested BPOs.
Yes.
I'm getting probably 3 or 4 offers a day to
Which
go up.
BPO stands for?
Broker price opinions. Basically, we see a lot of that. We see some of that with refinancing. We see some of that with, just sometimes banks just kind of checking on their houses. But mainly we see them when there's a default. So the people want to make sure that the banks want to make sure that the house is being taken care of. So they send an agent out to kind of give them an idea of what the value is and anything glaring, the house is vacant and destroyed, and that way we can kind of report back. So I'm seeing just huge increase in those, which means that tidal wave is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're hearing a lot about the market shift, and it truly is.
Mm-hmm.
But it is still.
We haven't crested that wave.
No, we haven't crested the wave at all yet. So it's still, there's still a couple people like my Blue Spring buyers, we're still not quite there where it's going to be more of a buyer's market. It's still definitely a seller's market, but we're starting to come a little bit, even up a little bit.
Yeah, which is really nice to see. Interest rates are up a little bit more. That is scaring off buyers, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still affordable right now.
Yeah, still affordable, and what goes up must come down, so you refinance later on.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's what I think a lot of people are scared, keep people off going, oh no, you can always refinance. Mm-hmm. And the market, thank God will shift. We might have a couple of rough years, but the market will, or the interest rates will start coming down again.
Yes.
So
everything's cyclical.
Yeah, well, and it's not like, I mean, my parents were paying like 18% when I was born. Yes. I mean, I can't even imagine, and we've never seen anything like that. So as long as I've been doing this, so yeah. But so in 2 weeks, it's going to be me again. I might do Kristen. We'll have to see, but I have a couple, and I'll give an update on the vanishing. It's either the vanishing or the vanishing. But when I get ready in the morning, I'll be putting my makeup on and I'll be playing TikTok. And so TikTok this morning, and I need to tag whoever it was because it was great. I hadn't seen him before, but I was scrolling through and it was like Netflix documentary you should watch now. And I was like, how does one disappear on a roller coaster?
It'll drive me crazy. It has to be solved or we can't do it.
Yeah, I feel like, we on the phone at like 9 o'clock at night, popcorn. Can you believe it?
We do that about life anyway. You don't have to watch a documentary to say that.
So our life is, we are that podcast. So yeah, watch for new merch. Will be coming soon. So and you guys have a great rest of the week. Stay cool out there. 106.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a friend of mine in Oklahoma. It was 115 yesterday. It's like, no, thank you.
No,
thank you. Yeah.
Done.
Give me October. October's perfect.
Well, because everybody in winter's like, I can't wait for hot weather. I can't wait. Can you be more specific about the hot weather?
Yeah. Maybe like bowels of hell is not appropriate hot weather. I want, like I said, I'm good about March, April, and October. Mm-hmm. And then, because I'm not a happy hot person.
Nobody is happy right now.
No, and I had this sleep. I sent you that picture. I had a sleep study a couple of days ago. And so between the heat and then having all these like tubes and stuff, I was so not happy. And my husband was just like, you lay down and go to sleep. And I was like getting up and readjusting everything angrily and sweating, and it was not
sweating angrily.
It was not a pretty picture, but it was definitely interesting. So yes, stay cool, have fun. If you guys have anything you want us to cover, crimesandclosings@gmail.com, and we're always here for entertainment and love to hear what you guys suggest. Yes. So have a great rest of the day.
See you later.
Bye.